podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hey everybody, welcome to Factory of the Future. I'm here with A.W. Schultz and I'm Alexandria Burek. Today what we're going to be talking about is a blend of A.W.'s study on instructional design and kind of some inspiration and kind of parallels with what I'm working on in my day job about providing an educational course on all things vehicle maintenance. So I'll let A.W. kick it off and get into the scholarly take and kind of some real life applications on his end. And then I'll be glad to kind of give you guys a hot take on how I've approached this and see where this goes.
Yeah, well, thanks, Alexandra. And it's probably a popular topic with me right now because one of the things, we talked about. A few months ago. I was in Africa doing some workshops, and it's always been something that, as I've been doing these trainings for over the years, particularly in the maintenance and reliability sections, is I want a captive audience. And I realize that when I do presentations, I hate when someone says death by PowerPoint, but it's sometimes that's absolutely true, is to find ways to engage the audience, and especially an adult audience. That's where I like to circle myself around.
And professional at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to find ways to engage them. And one of the things I found out, the psychology of it is when you're working with adults, and I believe it's humans for that matter, you need to have them do something different every 10 minutes. So engage them. So it might be posing a question, or have another activity, or taking a break, or something of that manner. But just not having them sit there and just benign, not doing anything.
Yeah.
But another thing, there's actually Malcolm Knowles, his theory of andragogy, which is a study of human learning, has 6 points that you have to consider, or that he theorizes that you need to consider when doing training of adult learners. One, adults want the need to know. They don't like being somewhere where they don't want to be. Unfortunately, there's some cases, we talk safety or other things like that, repetitive things that they have to go through every year. But if you can make it fun, that's the better part. They have to have a self-concept. And I'm reading these off the way. I don't have them memorized. So understanding why they're there, what's in it for them. Experience. And this is the experience a lot of times in the trainer. Like, how can they relate? What gives you the ability to talk to me about something that I'm doing, and how can I relate it to my own experience?
Yeah.
Readiness to learn. So selling them on that factor, like, what are we going to be doing? Orientation to learn. Having it organized so they have an idea when it's starting and stopping. People don't like to show up to a meeting and be surprised by it.
Yeah.
And the 6th one is the motivation to want to learn.
Yeah.
So those are what they Malcolm Knowles is considered as his 6 major things that go in conceptual learning. And you alluded to instructional design. And this, essentially this is the idea of, like, how do we, when we're asked and tasked to educate individuals, what goes into it and what are the steps into it? And one of the things that's surprising to me is a lot of times instructional design it goes down the same pathway as running a project. But the difference in instructional design is, in a project, you want to go step by step by step. Where in instructional design is you go by step, and then you go back to it, the steps prior, and ask yourself, could this be made better? and you continue on until the idea is you've got a continuous improvement cycle. So you're always trying to better on it.
Yeah.
That's been some of my learnings and some of my takeaways on that. And I was surprised to know that I had gained some of this knowledge through past failures that has kind of helped me, get through some of these topics and learning about a little bit about instructional design.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, from like having no formal background or educational kind of exposure to the degree that you have, I think it's really great to see like a buttoned up, well packaged 6 bullet points of these are the things that professionals should consider when they're providing educational content to an audience, either via podcast or via a meeting or something like that. So I was telling you as we logged on today about the Maintenance 101 course that I've created and started offering at my job. It is, I came at it with this idea, like a social media approach. So when I think you said something about like outlining the time and what to expect, people love consistency. Nobody likes unknowns, so coming into this, and I guess this might be a sign of my maturity and growth as a professional, I realize I've got 30 minutes. I'm not going to take up more than 30 minutes. Could I and would I like to talk about this for more than 30 minutes? Absolutely. But I'm like, I've got to keep it in bite-sized portions. We've got to deliver really good information really quickly, really consistently, and do it the same way every time. What I found in terms of engagement, so you mentioned every 10 minutes, ask a question or create an activity, like create something that like shakes it up a little bit.
Yeah.
What I find, especially going into like training sessions or meetings, is I set the expectation that this is an engaged conversation. Okay. Like going in. So the first thing that we did today, since this was our first session, is I said, okay, this is a forum in which I expect engagement. I expect you to ask questions. I expect a give and take of information here. This is not me talking at you. This is an informed conversation. And as we got to a certain point, I was getting very silent as I was presenting, as my co-host was presenting. And at a certain point, I said, okay, does anybody not know where this spring leaf is? We're talking about spring leaves, which are suspension type of semi-trailers. And I said, can anyone point out to me where the spring hangers are on this trailer piece that we're looking at? And I did finally get somebody to say, I don't know where they are. And it's like, okay, good, because there's probably plenty of other people that also don't know, but aren't willing to say that. So then we were able to point that out. We were able to have all these other kind of subset of the conversations. But with regards to the design of our class and the course that I'm running, I decided to take the social media approach. So I said, okay, we're going to do the same topic. We're going to go topic, gravest dangers, things you should know, our company standards. Here's an image to associate with this information. Here's the different levels of cost of these types of repairs. Here's the different levels of time with these types of repairs. And, here's who should be able to detect it. So it's a check mark of like a very highly skilled people, medium skilled people, or anyone should be able to identify that this is an issue. And I after the first one, I'm really excited to see how these pan out. I think it'll be a good value add to the organization. And I think it kind of levels the playing field. As I was closing out the call, I said, feel free to invite anybody and everybody that you think would be interested, because, it may seem that, only people who interface with trailers or tractors should be on this call. But I said wrong, because if customer service has a more knowledgeable understanding of the different maintenance components, they can then better articulate to a customer if there was a delay because of a trailer or tractor issue, the reasons that we didn't ship that equipment because of the severity and the dangers it would pose to the public. They could more easily articulate the potential delay. If they're on those calls and they understand that a trailer repair will only take about an hour, or a tire repair will only take about an hour, we know that that shipment still can go. That customer service agent can say, hey, this is probably going to be down, delayed by an hour or two, versus I don't have a clue how long it takes to change a tire, and having all these conversations. So that was kind of my approach too on a wide range of audience. I know you do a lot of trainings. Are your trainings are more workshop and long form? And you said you've been making a strong effort to engage people. So what are some of the tactics that you use when you're engaging the audience members in your trainings?
Humor, role play.
Cool.
I've got a lot of games. I made this board game that I play with. In fact, when I went to Africa, I left them my board game, and they had so much fun with it.
Wow.
What else? Just anything I can think of to get them talking, interactive. And I think I'm pretty good at it.
Good.
And I need to be good at it, because if they don't start talking, I'm introverted. I get worn out, absolutely worn out at the end of the day if I'm just talking the whole time. The best part, especially when I start talking about maintenance planning and scheduling, or especially in manufacturing or some of the lean tools, that stuff excites me, because if I can't do anything, I can at least revert back to some of my stories.
Yeah.
And usually some of my stories are pretty, they're all full of failures. So I've got lots of those. So they like hearing that. And it's kind of bringing them down to, a level with me.
Yeah. Lowering the guard. Yeah. Like, oh, this guy is not perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, you said role play, and I'm just trying to picture like what that looks like. Do you have any examples or like specific scenarios of like, walk us through like what a role play would be in this the context of this training topic?
One I did, and I based this off a true story, was I was just starting as a supervisor, and I was self-assigned like a mentor, who I would not categorize as a mentor. He was very lazy, and he had many other things he'd rather be doing than be a supervisor at work. And this particular role play, this workshop I was doing, was with the supervisors at a chemical plant. I've done it a couple times, all for the same company. But the role play was about creating what is a good supervisor and what is a bad supervisor. And the role play I had is I asked for a volunteer. Oh, and by the way, no one volunteers. So I also had this big wheel that had everyone's name on it.
Oh, wow.
And then that comes up, and then they have
That's really cool. So spin the wheel, but like obviously I'm from Wisconsin, and we have spin the wheel for shots. I'm sure other places have that as well, but I never would have thought of putting someone's name on it and doing it for like volunteer. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'd also do it too if I'd ask a question and it would be quiet, and then we'd spin the wheel. And I also use, I'm jumping around, but it's if it lands on like, instructor has to tell a joke, or you get 5 extra minutes of break time or something.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I don't think a lot of people would think of that. And I never would have thought of that myself.
Yeah. But again, I was motivated because somebody told me it was boring. So I took anything out of there trying to make it more exciting.
Yeah.
Back to my story. Sorry, disrailing here. Is I based it off of him, and I pretended I was a supervisor, and we role played an interview. And in this interview, I remember I was side, and I was, I'm a young supervisor, sitting there taking notes, how do you interview somebody? He comes in, and he was already working there, but he was applying for another position.
Yeah.
The supervisor sits, and the chairs are behind him, sits to his back. And the supervisor he's just going through his list, because HR is giving him a list. And after a while, he's quiet. And then, all of a sudden he starts checking his email and goes back. And the guy's just sitting there. And then it's just, awkward, just not giving him the feel of just recognizing him as a person. So I try to simulate that in there. And in particular cases, at the end, I'll put up my feet, and then
So you're playing the role of the bad supervisor.
I'm playing the role of the bad supervisor.
Okay.
And then I'm answering a call right in the middle of it. And then, my friend calls, and I'm talking about him. I talk like 15 seconds about something that has nothing important to do other than going deer hunting on the weekend.
Oh, cool.
And then I hang up, and then I close it out. And then I go to the group, and then we start talking about, what did you see? So then it really forces them to kind of say like that, what they saw. And then also think, yeah, I've been interviewed for a guy like that with that guy like that before. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
So I'm always trying to incorporate some different kind of role plays. You really got to let yourself out there though, because you're acting.
Yeah. It's interesting. I never, honestly, in all of the things that I've done to engage my employee base or the people that I'm educating or training on topics, I've literally never role played before ever. And I'm kind of like, wow, that's a great tool. So for the audience, I hope that that's something that you guys, if you maybe have overlooked, I mean, games are easy to think about, but, role playing is something that I really have not given much time or energy into. And then like, as you're talking about the supervisor example, I'm like, I wonder how this would go with like, doing that as you're walking through the factory floor and you're checking different things. So like, you could role play somebody who's maybe doing a B or C job, or definitely an F job, but then on the flip side, you could also, I was thinking, even take somebody from the audience, like if you worked with upper management, who they thought the best example of an employee was at that organization or in that factory or the cohort that you're training, and like specifically call on them to role play, or example what it is you're trying to illustrate about the proper methodology for checking. One example I look back on is we were interested in redefining a whole yard management process to manage the trailers and the trailer maintenance, the inventory on the trailers, and all these things. And so it was basically it was a function of supporting transportation and operations at the same time. So both groups would benefit because the yard was organized. It was based on Lean 5S methodology, so reduction of waste and kind of clutter. Things were where they were supposed to be in an organized fashion, where everybody on equal sides, equal teams knew where to go and how to look for things. And whoever the person was who was tasked with this daily activity of checking the trailers, we were going around in a group. So I had the senior VP of operations with me, plant managers with me, and then the get her done type of folks who would be the actual employees who were expected to perform this task. So I was leading them around, and I said, it's important that the form is in order of the way we check this, and that we walk the same way around the trailer every time, and that we fill out the form the same way every time, because that will ensure that we don't miss what we're actually trying to check. It becomes so much easier. It takes a lot less brain capacity trying to bounce between, that goes into form design and checklist design and all this other stuff. So we kind of took all that in, and it was really fascinating to me because somebody who I value as a mentor and a friend was actually the senior VP. That was the first day we met, and we've been very good friends ever since. But he said to me, wow, I never would have thought about doing it the same way every time. I never would have thought about these things, or how we design the checklist in the order of the things that we are filling in to accommodate and support that flow, that process flow. And, those are some of the things I think if I was in the audience, I would be taking away from this topic today. Engage your team. Think thoughtfully about how you're presenting to them, whether it's a consistent structure, whether it's a long form training, break it up every 10 minutes. If it's a short form training, give it to them the same way every time, and make the most out of that 30 minutes, 15 minutes that you've got with your team. If you're doing long form, engage the group by doing the role play, or having somebody else present who's considered an expert, but also a peer of the group that you're working with. These are all the different things that I think as leaders we can bring to our organizations and our teams that just are maybe more soft skills, or maybe they're not directly quantitatively valued, but qualitatively they have exponential effects on kind of the aura and the group performance.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
You're nailing it right on the head, because you think about it, you're doing the training for a reason. And if you're good and care about what you're doing, you can certainly just go and, administer the training and check off the box. But if you want them to come away with value added, and you want them to come back, and by the way, when you do good trainings, they might ask you to do it again. Those are the takeaways. And certainly training's, it's inevitable. It's part of manufacturing. It's part of everything. It's part of supply chain. It's everyone's goes through it. There's many different types of it, but if you find a way to engage them and have them walk away with something of value, that's a plus on you.
Yeah. And I think this also could be a call to action or call to attention for senior and executive level leaders. You need to recognize in your teams who is the engaged trainer, who is able to affect the change and engage the audience or the team in these topics. Because if you're trying to make these changes, make these improvements, improve efficiency, reduce waste and improve your outputs, then you need to know who's the person to communicate and get that off the ground. Like you're saying, I think there's a lot of skill in training. I think there's a lot of talent in training. And I think some of it is not necessarily stuff you can teach. It's something that somebody has to have an inclination and an aptitude for, and a passion for, continually improving, as you talked about earlier. I think that's been a great topic for us today. And I'm going to ask, are we clocking out here?
Alexander, we are clocking out here like finished goods.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right. Thank you. This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.